The quarantine chamber hummed like a vending machine with a grudge. Elliot Warren sat on the edge of the examination table, wrapped in a silver thermal blanket, feet dangling a few inches above the floor. His nose was red, eyes watery, and he'd long since given up trying to suppress the sneezes. The last one had startled the attending alien so badly it dropped its diagnostic tablet and backed into the sanitizer wall, triggering a 30-second decontamination burst. "I told you," Elliot rasped, voice hoarse. "I'll be fine in a couple days." "It's just a flu." The alien, a pale, sinewy creature with translucent skin that shimmered faintly under the overhead lights, didn't respond immediately. It tapped the side of its neck, where some kind of communication node pulsed blue, and then turned its large, pupil-less eyes back toward him. "You are emitting viral particulates at a rate inconsistent with acceptable biospheric containment," it said. "Your self-assessment is statistically unreliable," Elliot snorted. "That's what fevers do, make everything feel like a disaster." "Trust me, this isn't my first flu rodeo." The alien blinked slowly. Its name had been something like Klin, but Elliot had heard the accent the first time and stopped trying to pronounce it after the second syllable. Klin had been assigned to the Earth Detachment Medical Integration Unit, EDMIU, for short stationed in low orbit aboard the research vessel Relak Tau. They'd picked Elliot up 6 hours ago after a routine atmospheric scan flagged an unspecified biological hazard, centered on his apartment complex in Milwaukee. He hadn't even made it to the kitchen for orange juice before the ceiling split open, and a beam of cold blue light yanked him through 3 stories and into a waiting containment orb. Now he was here, wearing a hospital gown that felt like wet paper towels and being monitored by a creature that looked like a stretched jellyfish with arms. Klin adjusted a nearby panel, and a long mechanical arm extended from the ceiling, scanning Elliot's body with a narrow green beam. "Your internal temperature is elevated by 1.3 degrees centigrade, heart rate accelerated, respiratory tract inflamed, you are actively contagious." "Yeah," Elliot said, coughing into his elbow. "That's the flu." "It's kind of the whole package." Klin turned away and began speaking in its own language into the node on its neck. The language sounded like high-speed wind being forced through a flute. Elliot leaned back on the table. The ceiling was covered in shifting patterns of light that responded to movement. He waved his hand and watched the colors ripple. He was tired, his body ached, and his head felt like it had been stuffed with fiberglass. But more than anything, he wanted to go home, curl up on his couch, and binge old sci-fi movies until he passed out. A second alien entered the chamber. This one was shorter, with segmented arms and a face like a sheet of glass. Klin gestured toward Elliot. "He refuses full containment protocol," Klin said. "Claims the illness is self-limiting." The second alien stepped closer, examining Elliot with a handheld scanner. "Human," it said, voice pitched higher than Klin's, "this strain is unregistered. It must be cataloged and neutralized. It's from Earth," Elliot said. "We get these every winter, sometimes spring and fall. Occasionally in the summer, but that's rare." "You are not qualified to determine threat level," the second alien said. "Neither are you if you've never seen it before," Elliot replied. The alien tilted its head. "We have studied over 12 million terrestrial pathogens. This one is unfamiliar." "You ever hear of mutating viruses?" Elliot asked. "They change. That's why flu shots aren't always perfect." "The virus rolls the dice every year." Klin turned back. "Then it is unstable and unpredictable, all the more reason to remain in containment." Elliot sighed and coughed again. "Look, if you're gonna keep me here, fine, but at least give me some water and a bed." "This thing's killing my back." Klin motioned, and a section of the wall folded out into a padded recliner. A spout descended from the ceiling and filled a cup with translucent fluid. Elliot sniffed it cautiously before taking a sip. It tasted vaguely like cucumber and metal. He settled into the seat, grateful to be horizontal. His legs and arms ached and the chills came in waves. Still, it was just the flu, he told himself. He'd had worse. That time in college when he caught it during finals week, he'd still managed to finish his economics paper between coughing fits and NY quill naps. The aliens returned to their conversation, voices low and flute-like. Elliot dozed off halfway through a diagnostic scan. When he woke hours later, the chamber was dimmer. Clint stood at a console, reviewing a wall of data. "I feel worse," Elliot mumbled. Clint approached. "You have entered the cytokine escalation phase. Your immune system is overreacting," Elliot groaned. "Yeah. That tracks. We have isolated the viral agent. It is a variant of influenza A, highly mutable. Your biology is actively combating it, but the symptoms are destabilizing." "Still not a reason for all this drama," Elliot said. "People get through this every year." "You are not people," Clint said. "You are a vector." The door behind Clint opened and a third alien walked in, this one wearing a suit sealed from head to toe. It carried a sealed container and a syringe. "What's that?" Elliot asked, sitting up. "A sample must be extracted and neutralized," Clint said. "Your viral culture is required for replication trials." "I'm not a lab rat," Elliot said, backing away. "No harm will come to you. The fluid sample is minimal." Elliot looked at the syringe, then at the alien holding it. "Do you even know how to draw blood from a human?" The suited alien paused. Clint said, "We have studied human anatomy. We are prepared." "Then you know you can't just stick that anywhere," Elliot said. "There are veins, angles, you can't just guess." Clint hesitated. "You will guide the procedure." Elliot reluctantly held out his arm. "Use the inside of the elbow and go slow. If you hit the nerve, I swear I'll scream loud enough to crack your dome." The alien inserted the needle with surprising gentleness. Elliot winced but didn't flinch. After the extraction, Clint sealed the tube inside the container and handed it off. The suited alien left without a word. Elliot leaned back again, breathing through his mouth. "I think my fever's higher," he said. Clint scanned him again. Temperature now elevated by 2.1 degrees. "You are dehydrated, muscle fatigue imminent." "Yeah," Elliot muttered. "That's the flu." Clint stood still. "Your resilience is unexpected. Most species with equivalent symptoms would be incapacitated." "I am incapacitated," Elliot said. "It just doesn't come with dramatic collapse." "It's more like slow, miserable suffering." Clint looked at him for a long time. "Humans willingly endure this." "We don't have a choice," Elliot said. "It's not like you can opt out of the flu. You just ride it out. Stay home. Watch bad TV, drink soup." Clint turned away, clearly unconvinced. "Your culture tolerates widespread transmission of this virus." "We try not to, but it's hard. People work. Kids go to school. Not everyone can afford to stay home every time they feel sick." Clint remained silent. Then it said, "You will remain under observation. Further deterioration will result in medical intervention. Non-invasive if possible." "You do that," Elliot grumbled, pulling the blanket over his shoulders. Over the next day, Clint monitored Elliot's condition closely. The fever peaked, then began to taper. His cough lingered but showed signs of breaking. Clint administered fluids, allowed him limited hot meals, and even adjusted the light levels to ease his headaches. Elliot never stopped complaining, but he also never collapsed. And by the third day, he was sitting up, eating solid food and watching a projection of 1980s sitcoms Clint had downloaded to study human culture. Clint stood nearby, arms folded. "You have improved," it said. "Told you," Elliot said, mouth full of rehydrated pasta. "I'll be fine in a couple days." Clint didn't respond for a moment. Then it said, "Your biology is inefficient, but your immunity is adaptable." Elliot grinned, then coughed. "It's not pretty, but it gets the job done. You may be discharged once symptom latency falls below threshold." "Great," Elliot said. "Next time maybe ask before vacuuming me out of my living room." Clint looked at him. "Would you have said yes?" Elliot paused. "Probably not." Then the procedure was optimal. Elliot rolled his eyes and lay back again. "Next time bring cough drops." Klin didn't reply, but a small tray slid out of the wall beside him. On it sat a small foil packet labeled menthol extract human palatable. Elliot grunted. Not bad. He unwrapped one, popped it in his mouth, and let the menthol tingle his throat. Maybe interstellar medicine wasn't so bad after all. The walls of the chamber were displaying slow, rhythmic pulses of amber, and Violet some automated attempt at creating a calming environment, though Elliot wasn't convinced it wasn't just the ship's version of ambient noise for anxious captives. He was sitting cross-legged on the reclining bench, flicking a spoon against an empty nutrient bowl with a sort of idle menace. "I've had airline food with more flavor," he said, not to anyone in particular. From across the room, Klin adjusted something on its console with 2 long fingers, then turned back. "That was the third portion. You requested more." "I requested something that didn't taste like room-temperature wallpaper paste." Elliot set the spoon down. "Any chance your ship's got pepper?" "Garlic, a lemon." We cataloged over 600 human condiments. None were cleared for onboard integration due to volatility. Volatility? Elliot blinked. "What you think paprika's gonna explode?" There was an incident involving fermented mustard. The result was structural damage and 3 evacuations. Elliot stared. "You weaponized deli spread." "It was unintentional," he laughed and immediately regretted it. The cough that followed was rougher than before, dry and dragging. He grabbed the cloth square Klin had handed him earlier and pressed it to his mouth. After a few seconds, the fit passed. He leaned back against the headrest, breathing shallowly. Klin approached but stopped a meter short. "You are not improving at the expected rate." "Yeah," Elliot said, voice raspy. "Sometimes it lingers. Depends on the strain. My chest's tight and everything tastes like cardboard, but I'm not dying. The saturation levels in your lungs have declined. You are approaching threshold for respiratory assistance." Elliot rubbed his forehead. "I'm not getting intubated on a spaceship, man. I'm not that guy. I'm not gonna end up on some galactic educational slide labeled primitive respiratory cascade failure." Klin tilted its head. "That would be an effective teaching tool." "Morbid," Elliot muttered. Klin didn't reply. Instead, it reached to a panel and pressed a sequence. A circular slot in the wall slid open, revealing a narrow wand-like device with a clear tube attached. It looked vaguely like a cross between a flute and a thermometer. "What's that?" "Pulmonary nebulizer, modified to accommodate your lung structure. Inhalation therapy should reduce inflammation." Elliot eyed it. "Is it gonna sting?" "No." "Does it taste like fermented mustard?" Klin paused. "No." Elliot took the device, turned it over in his hands, and placed the mouthpiece between his lips. A cool vapor began flowing through, tinged faintly with eucalyptus. "Okay, that's not terrible," he inhaled deeply, eyes half closing. After a few minutes, the pressure in his chest began to ease, not completely but enough to notice. "That's actually helping. Where were you hiding this the last 2 days?" "It required synthesis based on your exhaled biomarkers." Klin stepped closer. "Human self-repair is inefficient. But your capacity for tolerating dysfunction is considerable." "Is that a compliment or a diagnosis?" "Observation." Elliot set the device down carefully. "I guess it's weird for you seeing a species that just puts up with being sick. Most intelligent life forms isolate at cellular onset. You continued functioning through systemic deterioration." "Yeah, that's called having a job." Klin flicked a small control on the wall. The lights dimmed slightly, then shifted to a softer hue. "You have not rested sufficiently. Your REM cycles are irregular." Elliot slumped back. "This bench creaks like a haunted toaster. You try sleeping on it." "The frame is engineered to conform to your spinal curvature. Discomfort suggests muscular strain." "Could be. Or I'm just sore from being abducted mid-sneeze." Klin stood silently for a beat. "I have reviewed your neural scan from earlier." Elliot looked over. "You scanned my brain, non-invasively. I didn't even notice." "That was the intent." Elliot rubbed his temple. "Okay, what you find?" "That I'm hopelessly irrational and prone to sarcasm." Your cognition is within expected parameters. However, you were repeatedly visualizing a specific scenario involving a food warming appliance and a small domesticated canine. He blinked. You mean the dream where I accidentally microwaved my neighbor's chihuahua? Yes, that's just stress. Your species externalizes emotional strain through irrational dream imagery. Most of us, yeah. Clint paused again. Fascinating, there was a long silence. Elliot yawned and stretched out on the bench, letting his muscles settle. The vapor had helped more than he'd expected. A different alien entered shorter than Clint, with a posture like someone constantly bracing for loud noises. It carried a metal tray with a sealed cylinder and set it down on the side shelf. Clint turned to it. Status: replication unsuccessful, viral sample degraded during phase 3. Try again with increased thermal resistance. Human strains exhibit higher endurance than anticipated. The shorter alien nodded and left without a word. Elliot watched them go. You're still trying to grow my flu? We are attempting to understand its mutation pathways. Well, good luck. It changes faster than my high school girlfriend's mood. Clint didn't respond to that. Instead, it walked over and tapped the cylinder on the tray. A small holographic projection lit up, displaying a spiraling chain of proteins. This strain displays recombination markers from at least 6 prior iterations. Your immune system is adapting dynamically. That's what it does, Elliot said. It learns, sometimes too well. That's where the body gets confused and starts attacking itself. You are describing autoimmune responses. Yeah, friend of mine had that. Her joints would swell up when the weather changed. Her own defenses couldn't tell when to stand down. Clint studied the projection. Your biology is simultaneously resilient and error-prone. Welcome to humanity. Another cough hit him, less violent this time but still deep. He wiped his face with the cloth square again, then glanced at Clint. You ever get sick? My species undergoes metabolic recalibration every 76 cycles. Symptoms are brief and controlled. Must be nice. Clint paused. It is not pleasant. Yeah, but you're not shivering on a metal bench watching your mucus change colors. Correct. The chamber door opened again, and this time a different figure stepped in, taller than Clint with a coral-like crest running from crown to back. It wore a dark band across its chest, lined with silver loops. Clint straightened. Director Vess. The newcomer surveyed the room, then focused on Elliot. This is the subject? Correct, Clint said. Human identified as Elliot Warren, pathogen carrier. Status: stabilizing. Vess walked closer, head tilting slightly. You appear functional. Elliot raised an eyebrow. Thanks. Your strain has resisted 2 containment protocols and a full-spectrum neutralization cycle. Unpleasant side effects have been observed in 3 of our researchers. Oh no, Elliot sat up. You caught it. Symptoms include fatigue, vocal distortion, and increased fluid secretion from ocular ducts. You mean they're tired, hoarse, and teary? Yes, Elliot bit back a laugh. Yeah. That's the flu. Vess leaned in slightly. You are not alarmed. I warned you. Vess turned to Clint. Has the subject received preventive agents? No, he refused synthetic intervention. You declined treatment? Vess asked. I said I'd be fine in a couple days. And I meant it. Vess studied him. Your confidence borders on negligence. It's not confidence, it's experience. Vess stepped back. Human physiology is more chaotic than anticipated. We require further observation. Elliot groaned. You're keeping me longer, until your strain ceases transmission risk. And how long's that gonna be? Unknown. Your biology is unpredictable. Elliot flopped backward. Great. Vess turned to leave but paused. You will be relocated to a longer-term containment chamber. More comfortable? Will it have a window? No. Then I'm not calling it comfortable. The door closed behind Vess. Clint remained near the console, making adjustments. Elliot exhaled slowly, staring at the ceiling light. You know, I was supposed to have a date tonight. Explain. I was gonna meet someone, wine, dinner, maybe a walk if the weather held, Klin processed this. You anticipated social interaction while in a weakened state, that's the thing. I didn't plan on getting sick. It just happened. Klin tilted its head. You proceed with significant plans while harboring viral instability? Yeah, Elliot said. Because life doesn't wait for your immune system to catch up. Klin looked at him for a long moment, then it walked to the side wall and pressed a control. A small panel slid open, revealing a stack of soft blankets, actual fabric, not metallic wrap. Elliot blinked. That's new. We have adjusted your comfort protocol. He took one, unfolded it, and wrapped it around himself. Thanks, he said, quieter than before. Klin returned to the console. You are still contagious, I know. But you are improving. Also true. Klin didn't say anything else. Elliot slowly leaned back, pulling the blanket tighter. His chest still ached, but the sharp edge of it had dulled. The vapor treatment was helping, and for the first time in days, he felt like he might actually sleep without coughing himself awake. Above him, the ceiling lights dimmed again. The shifting colors faded into a deep, cool indigo. He closed his eyes. He was still stuck on an alien ship, still technically under quarantine, and still recovering from a stubborn human illness. But at least now the room didn't smell like disinfectant and despair. The upgraded containment suite had carpet. Not Earth style, but a flexible mesh that flexed with each step and gave slightly underweight, like walking on thick moss. Elliot had been transferred there after the second round of tests, showed his viral load had dropped below the ship's risk threshold, though he was still restricted from interacting with the general crew, or whatever passed for general on a ship staffed entirely by creatures that looked like rejected sketches from a biology textbook. He sat at a low table shaped like a half-melted ring, sipping something warm and beige from a flexible pouch. It claimed to be digestively neutral, which was alien for you won't barf. He had insisted on eating upright, which Klin had reluctantly allowed once it was clear Elliot wasn't about to collapse again. You're still wheezing, Klin noted from across the room, adjusting the filter settings on the environmental panel. That's what lungs do when they've been through 3 days of hell, Elliot said. It'll taper off. You exhibit confidence disproportionate to your actual respiratory function. I exhibit experience. A new presence entered the room, pushing a wheeled cart that hummed faintly. This one was broader than Klin, with branching antennae and a set of limbs that moved like segmented blades. Its eyes were fixed forward, though they didn't blink or track movement. I don't think we've met, Elliot said, raising his pouch. New nurse? This is Durex, Klin said. They specialize in biological post-analysis and structural reconstitution. Cool, Elliot said. What's on the cart? Durex answered, voice pitched like wind through a cracked window. Your bedding has been upgraded to reduce sleep disruption and accommodate human thermoregulation. Elliot watched as the cart folded open, revealing a mattress-like surface that inflated to full size in seconds. It looked like a cross between a yoga mat and a pool float. Durex began fitting it into the corner alcove. Appreciated, Elliot said. The last one felt like sleeping on a stack of overdue library books. Klin approached a side panel and tapped a few commands. A projection flared to life, displaying a 3-dimensional model of Elliot's chest cavity. Red and yellow zones glowed faintly over his lungs. You've developed mild bronchial inflammation, Klin said. Your immune system initiated a late-phase response, not ideal for recovery. Let me guess, Elliot said. I should rest more. Yes. I should drink more fluids. Yes. And I should probably stop making sarcastic comments every time you scan me. That would be optimal, Elliot grinned. Not happening. Durex finished setting up the bedding and withdrew silently, cart humming behind. The door slid shut with a soft chime. Klin remained at the console, glancing between the projection and a data stream scrolling along the wall. Your internal temperature has returned to baseline, Klin said. However, your oxygen absorption is still 15% below ideal. I can feel it, Elliot said, rubbing his chest, still tight when I take a deep breath. You resisted assisted breathing, Clint reminded him. Had you accepted treatment earlier, your recovery would have accelerated. And yet here I am, still breathing, unassisted. Suboptimal but factual. Elliot leaned back against the wall, exhaling slowly. You know, you guys are lucky this was just the flu. You ever seen what happens when humans get norovirus? Clint's eyes shifted slightly. I have not. Consider yourself blessed. There was a quiet moment. The only sound was the faint hum of the room's air system and the occasional click from Clint's console. Eventually, Elliot asked, "What happened to the crew that caught it?" "They are recovering. Symptoms were intense but brief. Human pathogens overwhelm non-native biologies but tend to burn out quickly. Anything permanent, minor vocal cord irritation." One case of short-term neural fog. Elliot winced. Yikes. They are now in isolation, not for their safety, for everyone else's. Emotional stability was compromised. Wait, you mean they got cranky, agitated, disoriented? One attempted to sing continuously for 6 hours. Elliot blinked. Honestly, that's not that different from some guys I knew in freshman dorms. Clint turned off the projection with a flick of its fingers. You are no longer contagious. We have confirmed that your immune response has neutralized the active strain. So I'm clear, you are medically stable. You will be returned to Earth within the next planetary cycle. Elliot tapped his fingers on the table. So why do you look like someone just told you your ship's been recalled? Clint hesitated. We underestimated your species. Everyone does, Elliot muttered. We assumed fragility. Your biology is chaotic, your systems inefficient. But despite that, you resist collapse under internal stressors that would incapacitate most carbon-based life forms. Well, that's what happens when you grow up on a planet where the weather can kill you before lunch. Clint crossed its arms, or rather, folded its upper limbs behind its back. You metabolized a mutating virus while sleep-deprived, dehydrated, and under psychological strain, and you remained conscious the entire time. I've had worse Tuesdays. Clint didn't reply. It just stood there watching him. Elliot shifted. You okay? I am processing. Don't overdo it. Clint took a step closer. Why didn't you ask for more help? He blinked. What do you mean? From the beginning, you accepted minimal intervention. You endured discomfort, pain, and physiological distress and only requested assistance when it became unavoidable. Elliot looked down at the mesh beneath his feet. Because for us that's normal, asking for help too early. People think you're weak or lazy. Or faking it. Clint's eyes narrowed slightly, an expression Elliot had learned meant confusion rather than suspicion. In my culture, Clint said slowly, early intervention is considered intelligent, efficient. Yeah, well. On Earth, you're expected to tough it out unless something's actually broken, and even then, there's paperwork. Clint was quiet for a while. Eventually, it said, I have updated your medical profile. You will not be flagged for future retrieval unless critical failure is detected. Good, Elliot said, because I'm not doing this again. Clint stepped back toward the console. You will be escorted to atmospheric descent in 6 hours. You may rest until then. Elliot rose to his feet and walked over to the new bedding. It was softer than he'd expected, with a subtle warmth that spread through the fabric as he lay down. Clint watched him settle in. Before the lights dimmed, Elliot asked, This gonna go in some report? It already has, Clint replied. Good. Maybe next time have a little faith in the human immune system. Clint didn't respond. The room darkened gradually, filtering down to a soft blue hue. Elliot closed his eyes. He was going home, no fever, no cough, no more mucus analysis, just Earth. And maybe if he timed it right, he could still catch the tail end of happy hour. He exhaled, lungs still not perfect but no longer fighting him. The blanket adjusted around his shoulders. For the first time in 4 days, he slept without interruption. And on the Relac Tau, the medical officers began rewriting their protocols for handling human biological anomalies, starting with a bold new directive. Do not abduct Earthlings with common colds. They may survive. But they will complain relentlessly.